everyone. Ready to talk about something I think we all struggle with a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
Saying no.
It's so hard.
You know, like you get all these requests and invitations, and sometimes...
Just want to hit decline on everything.
Yeah.
Just like shut it all down.
So in this deep dive, we're going to be talking all about how to say no without the guilt.
It's like a superpower.
It is a superpower.
Learning to say no.
Yeah. And one of the things the sources we're looking at today really emphasizes that
Oh, yeah.
it's a skill.
Like any other.
Like any other skill.
You can get better at it.
Right. And the more you practice, the better you get.
Definitely.
And they're also saying that basically every time you say yes to something that isn't important to you, you're saying no to something that is important to you.
Yeah, because you only have so much time.
Exactly.
So much energy.
So it's like you're constantly saying no to the things that really matter when you're saying yes to all these other things.
To all these other things that people want from you.
Yeah. So let's get into technique number 1 for mastering the guilt-free no.
Okay, what's number 1?
Identify your priorities.
Oh, that's so important.
It is so important.
Because you have to know what matters most to you.
Yeah, like how do we even begin to decide what to say no to if we don't know what actually matters to us?
Exactly.
So it's like, imagine your time and energy as a limited resource.
Like money in a way.
Yeah, like money.
You want to be careful how you spend it.
Exactly. So you want to be investing it
in the right places.
Wisely in the places that align with your goals and your values.
Absolutely.
And this source actually recommends keeping a list of your top priorities.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Handy, so that when you are faced with a decision, you can kind of look at that cheat sheet and be like,
yeah,
okay, does this actually align with what matters most to me?
That makes so much sense.
Right. Okay, so we know what matters to us. We've got a priority straight.
What's next?
Let's talk about how to actually communicate those priorities.
Okay.
Because knowing what matters is one thing.
Yeah.
But then actually being able to say no is another.
So how do we do that?
Yeah. So that brings us to technique number 2. Practicing assertiveness.
Assertiveness.
Yes.
Now that can sound kind of scary.
It can sound kind of scary.
To some people.
But it doesn't have to be.
No.
It's not about being rude.
No, not at all.
It's not about being mean.
It's about being clear.
Yes.
And confident.
It's about setting boundaries.
Yes, setting healthy boundaries.
And the source actually gave a great example of how to do this.
Oh, what's that?
So instead of, getting all flustered and trying to come up with a big explanation when someone asks you to do something you don't want to do, you can just say something like...
Like what?
I can't commit to that right now.
I can't commit to that right now.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Simple, straight to the point.
And polite.
Polite?
I like it.
It's a great way to kind of avoid that overwhelm, too.
Because you're not taking on too much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got our priorities sorted. We're being assertive.
Okay.
But sometimes we need a little bit of extra help to avoid those impulsive yeses.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like when you're put on the spot?
In the moment.
And you just blurt out yes?
Yes.
And then later you're like, why did I say yes to that?
What have I done?
Exactly. So this is where technique number 3 comes in. The 24-hour rule.
Okay, tell me more about this.
This is my secret weapon.
Ooh, secret weapon. I'm intrigued.
So basically, anytime someone asks you to do something, instead of immediately saying yes or no, you just say...
What do you say?
Let me get back to you.
Oh, I like that.
Let me think about it.
I need 24 hours.
I need 24 hours, exactly.
To
really think about it. And, sometimes when you actually give yourself that time to process, you realize that's not something you actually want to do.
And you can avoid that regret later.
Yes, it's all about avoiding that regret.
Love it.
Okay, ready for technique number 4?
Hit me with it.
This one's short and sweet and powerful.
Okay.
No is a complete sentence.
Whoa!
Mic drop.
Seriously?
Seriously.
You don't always need an explanation?
You don't need to over-explain.
You don't have to justify?
You don't have to apologize.
So powerful.
You have the right to say no, and that's it.
I love that.
Right. Okay, but there's always a but.
There's always a but.
It's not always that easy.
What's the hard part?
Because there's this thing.
This thing.
Called guilt.
Ugh. Guilt the worst.
It's like the guilt is always there, lurking.
It's like a little voice in the back of your head.
Saying, but you should say yes.
Yeah, you should help.
You should be nice.
You should do this.
You should do that. So how do we deal with the guilt?
That's the big question.
That is the big question that brings us to technique number 5.
Okay.
Reframing the guilt.
Ooh, reframe.
Yeah, so one of the things the source talked about was how guilt can actually be a sign that you're not honoring your own needs.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So instead of saying no as something you should feel bad about, try to see it as an act of self-care.
Self-care.
Yeah, like you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
So you can then show up
for other people.
For other people and for yourself.
And for yourself, that's key.
In a more authentic way.
Right, because if you're burned out and exhausted, you're no good to anyone.
You're no good to anyone.
Including yourself.
Including yourself, exactly. So it's about choosing what brings you joy and fulfillment.
Absolutely.
Instead of letting that guilt dictate all your decisions.
So true.
Okay. You ready for the last technique?
I am. Give it to me.
This one might feel a little silly.
Okay.
But it works.
Okay, what is it?
Role-playing.
Role-playing.
I know.
Like we're back in high school drama class.
I know it sounds a little weird.
Okay.
But hear me out.
All right, I'm listening.
It's basically like a dress rehearsal.
Okay.
For real-life situations where you need to say no.
So we're practicing.
We're practicing.
Right.
We're practicing saying no in a safe environment.
I like it.
So that when we're actually faced with that situation in real life,
we're ready.
We're ready, and it doesn't feel so scary.
We got this.
We got this.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Right. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes.
The more natural it feels.
Exactly. So you can practice in front of the mirror with a friend, with your pet.
My dog's going to think I'm crazy.
Your dog might think you're crazy.
But that's okay.
But that's okay as long as you're getting that practice in.
Right. Practice makes perfect.
Practice makes perfect, or at least makes it a little bit easier.
Less scary.
Less scary, exactly.
I'm ready to start role-playing.
You ready to role-play?
I'm ready, are you?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into saying no.
We've talked about some really great techniques so far.
Yeah, some really practical tips.
For like setting boundaries and prioritizing our time and energy.
And you know what's interesting is one of the things that really stood out to me from the sources is it's like an ongoing process.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like you just wake up one day and you're like,
I'm a no ninja.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm the master of no.
Yeah.
It's more like you're gradually increasing your comfort level.
Totally.
With setting those boundaries.
That's like unlearning.
Yeah.
Those old people-pleasing habits.
Exactly. Like all those patterns of overcommitting and saying yes when you really want to say no.
I'm curious, have you found like specific scenarios where it's been particularly challenging to say no?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like what about when you're asked to do something by your boss?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Or a close friend or a family member.
Yeah, those are tricky because there's so much emotional weight.
Yes.
To those relationships.
It's like you feel obligated to say yes even when you don't want to.
Even when it's going to like stress you out.
Totally.
Or overextend you.
But that's where those techniques that we talked about really come in handy.
Right.
Like identifying your priorities.
Yeah, knowing what matters most to you.
So that you can confidently navigate those tricky situations.
It's like having a compass to guide your decisions.
Love that.
When you know your values and your priorities.
It's so much easier to stay true to yourself.
Even when you're facing pressure from others.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I value spending time with my family, so I'm going to politely decline this extra work project, even though my boss might be disappointed.
Yeah, and that's where the assertiveness comes in.
Right.
Like you can acknowledge their request, express that you understand their perspective, but still firmly state your boundary.
Like, I understand that this project is really important, but I'm already feeling overextended right now.
Yeah.
Maybe we can revisit this at a later time. Perfect.
Right.
That's great.
Straight to the point. Respectful but firm.
And it reminds me of that other technique.
Which one?
No is a complete sentence.
Yes.
Sometimes you just don't need to give a long explanation.
Yeah, you don't need to justify or apologize.
It's so freeing.
It is free.
Just no.
I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, though.
Oh, for sure.
Especially when it comes to requests from, like, loved ones. You know, it feels selfish to say no.
Yeah, like you're letting them down.
Right. But actually, sometimes saying no is the most loving thing you can do.
For yourself?
For yourself.
And for others.
Yeah, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
And if you're constantly saying yes to everyone else...
Yeah, you're going to run out of steam.
You're going to burn out.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to show up.
For anyone.
For anyone.
In a meaningful way.
So it's actually more generous.
Yeah.
To sometimes say no.
So true.
And set those boundaries.
It is all about taking care of yourself. Yeah.
So you can take care of others?
It goes back to that reframing, right? Viewing no as self-care?
Self-care, not selfish.
Self-care, not selfish, exactly.
Now, before we move on,
Yeah.
I want to circle back to the 24-hour rule.
Okay.
Because I'm curious, how do you use this in your own life?
Oh my gosh, all the time.
Really?
All the time.
Give me an example.
Okay, so like just the other day, a friend asked me to help out with this big project.
Okay.
And it sounded really exciting at first.
Yeah.
But then I remember
The 24-hour rule.
a 24-hour rule.
Smart.
And I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
Let me think about it.
Let me get back to you.
Let me get back to you.
Yeah.
And during that 24 hours, I realized that saying yes would have meant sacrificing a lot of my personal time.
Oh, no.
And adding a ton of stress to my plate.
Yeah.
So
you said no.
I said no.
Go for you.
And you know what? My friend was totally understanding.
That's great.
And it actually made me realize that, like, using these techniques can actually strengthen your relationships.
Absolutely.
Because you're being honest.
You're communicating clearly.
You're setting those healthy boundaries.
Which is the foundation of any strong relationship.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of, like, mental and emotional aspects of saying no. But I want to get into a more, like... practical technique that I think might help some people feel more confident.
Go ahead.
Remember that one we talked about earlier?
Which one?
Role play.
Oh, yes, the dress rehearsal.
The dress rehearsal, I have to admit, I'm still a little skeptical.
You are?
I am?
Okay, get it.
Like, can you convince me that practicing saying no in front of a mirror actually works?
I can try.
Okay.
So think about it this way.
Okay.
Public speaking is like a common fear for a lot of people.
Definitely.
But what helps reduce that fear?
Practice.
Practice.
Yeah.
The more you rehearse, the more natural and comfortable it feels to stand up and speak your mind.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It's the same concept with saying no.
So it's like building that muscle memory of setting a boundary.
Yeah, and getting used to the words coming out of your mouth.
But what do you actually say to the mirror?
Well, you can think of specific scenarios that you find challenging and practice different ways of responding.
So, like, for example...
Let's say you know a coworker is going to ask you to cover their shift.
Okay.
You could practice saying, thanks for asking, but I'm not able to cover your shift this time. I've already made other commitments.
And you just say that out loud to yourself?
Yeah, just get comfortable with the words.
In a mirror?
In a mirror. If you want.
You don't have to.
I feel like my dog would judge me.
Your dog might judge you.
Yeah.
But as long as you're getting the practice in.
That's true.
It's all about finding what works for you.
Okay, so it's not just about, like, practicing the words.
Yeah. It's about getting comfortable with the act of saying no.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to get on board with this role-playing idea.
I knew you would come around.
Okay, what if, like, my neighbor asks me to watch their pet iguana?
Oh, no.
While they're on vacation, and I'm, like, terrified of iguanas.
Well, there's your feast roleplay challenge.
Okay.
Practice different ways of politely declining that iguana sitting request.
I love it.
You got this.
All right, roleplay. Here I come.
All right, so as we move on to the final part of our deep dive, just remember, you have the power to choose how you spend your time and energy.
Absolutely. Welcome back to our deep dive. It's the final part.
The final part.
Of our exploration into saying no.
I can't believe it's already the final part.
I know, it's gone by so fast.
It has.
You've talked about so many great techniques.
Yeah, for reclaiming your time, setting those boundaries.
Good stuff.
Feeling more empowered.
Yes. And now we're going to talk about, like, the big picture.
Ooh, the big picture. I like it.
The transformative impact that saying no can have.
On your life.
Yeah. Because it's not just about, like...
Avoiding things.
Avoiding things you don't want to do, right?
Right. It's bigger than that.
It's about creating space.
Yeah.
For the things that you do want to do.
For the things that light you up.
Exactly. That bring you joy. So one of the sources that we looked at shared this really interesting story.
Oh, tell me about it.
About a woman who was constantly overcommitted.
Oh, I know that feeling.
And feeling totally burnt out.
Yeah.
Like she was saying yes to everything and everyone.
But she wasn't happy.
But she wasn't happy.
That's the key, right?
Yeah. And finally she was like, enough is enough.
Yeah.
I'm going to start saying no.
Good for her.
And so she did.
And what happened?
Well, she didn't, like, magically find all this free time.
Okay.
But she did notice a huge shift in her overall well-being.
How?
She had more energy.
Okay.
She had way less stress.
That's huge.
And she was able to focus on things that she was actually passionate about.
The things that mattered to her.
The things that mattered to her.
That's awesome.
She even started a new hobby.
Really?
That she'd always wanted to try.
Wow.
But never had the time for.
That's amazing.
So it's like saying no opened up all these possibilities for her.
It's like it gave her permission to do the things that she really wanted to do.
So it's not about deprivation.
Yeah.
It's about empowerment.
It's about freedom.
It's about freedom.
Exact.
To design a life that you love.
Yes. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are like the key takeaways?
The key takeaways
that you want our listeners to remember?
Okay, so first and foremost, saying no is a skill that you can develop. It's not about becoming like
a robot.
A no robot.
Who just says no to everything.
Right.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Between honoring your own needs.
And being considerate of others.
Right. It's about setting boundaries.
But with grace and confidence.
Exactly.
And remember, saying no is not selfish.
Not at all.
It's
an act of self-care.
An act of self-care.
And sometimes it's the most generous thing you can do for yourself and the people around you.
Because when you're clear about your limits, you can show up more fully
for the things that matter most
in all areas of your life.
So true.
And don't forget the power of practice.
Practice.
I mean, you're using the 24-hour rule.
Or embracing no as a complete sentence.
Or role-playing.
Yeah, the more you practice, the easier it gets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, as we were going through all this material, this one quote really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah, which one?
It said, saying no is a form of self-respect.
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
Powerful.
It's about honoring your worth.
Yeah.
Recognizing that your time and energy are valuable.
So valuable.
So valuable.
It's not about being rude or dismissive.
Right.
It's about valuing yourself and building a life that aligns with your true self.
Well said. All right, folks. That wraps up our deep dive
into the art of saying no.
I hope you found it insightful.
I hope so, too.
And are feeling ready to start setting some healthy boundaries.
Yeah, go out there and start saying no.
With confidence and grace.
You got this.
You got this. And don't forget to celebrate those no's.
Yes.
Every time you say no to something that doesn't align
with your priority,
you're saying yes to something that does.
So true.
And that's a much more fulfilling way to live.
Absolutely.
All right, until next time, keep learning, keep exploring.
And keep saying yes to a life that you love.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.